Frank Klose covers the Phils, 97.3 ESPN.com. Of course, the Phillies moved into first place over the weekend with a sweep of the Metropolitans. Both teams had the night off last night, so no movement in the National League East. Braves were off as well, but all three are back in action tonight, Frank, and obviously the Phillies have the toughest battle here. Let me get your start. Let's start with that. Let me get your expectation and what do you want to see happen in this series against the Dodgers? Do they just have to figure out a way to get one? Would you like to see them get two to kind of prove that they belong? How are you kind of approaching this series?
Well, I think the Phillies certainly need to win one, right? I know that doesn't sound like something to aspire to, but the Phillies will probably be okay if they win one of these games. But you know what? They're home, so it's a lot different than going out to LA and facing the Dodgers. The Phillies have beaten Max Scherzer before. I guess a lot will depend on kind of how they come out. It seems like a lot of the Max Scherzer starts we've seen this year, the Phillies have come out swinging early in the count, and Scherzer got deep into games. I would like to see them sort of let Scherzer labor a little bit. And if you can get past him, then you're feeling a lot better about the series because, winning one out of the following two seems a lot better. But I think that's true of any of these tough series, that if you can get off to a good start, you can kind of set a tone that will take the team a long way.
I know that, they won 8 straight. What has kind of happened during this 8-game win streak that has stood out to you and that they can continue doing to keep the success moving forward? Is it just a hot streak, or has something kind of, tweaked or changed over this little streak that we can start to see the foundation of a better baseball team? I saw their record, 59-53. It's the same record that they had in 07. It's also the same record they had in 1980.
I see a new sense of confidence I didn't see before. It seemed to me before when a player would get injured, and let's face it, they had a lot of them throughout the season, right? Whether it's Bryce or JT Realmuto or Didi at times. Of course, Didi gets hit by a pitch and he's out a couple games again. But it seemed like before they almost took a woe is me type approach. And now I see the Phillies just saying, okay, well, keep powering on. We got this.
You got better depth too, though, right?
Yeah. Right. Well, the depth is a little bit better, but in some respects, I just think the attitude is so much better. Like I didn't see a team that had any sense of urgency before, and now it seems like there's a sense of urgency. And the more that they've, as that has built, their confidence has built, and I don't think that a series against the Dodgers feels like it would if it was 3 weeks ago.
Hey, Frank, let's look at some of the mailbag questions. These are questions that the listeners and the Phillies fans are thinking the most about, and obviously there's a lot of questions that we can get to, but these are some from our listeners, and I want to focus on those. Gary says, do you think they are peaking too early? Do they have enough gas left to finish the job? I'm interested to see how you answer this one.
I get where he's coming from, because we've seen over the years many teams have sort of gone on a hot streak at the end of the season, and that's kind of carried them into the playoffs. The Phillies, you just mentioned the 2007 Phillies being one of those teams. But, it's, and also, of course, the Phillies in 2007 got swept by the Rockies, who won 14 out of 15 to finish that season. So we've seen it very much that the hot team can go somewhere at the end. But, and certainly I think being the hot team really does matter. But, 50 games left, there still is a bunch of time, but I still think that this is going to be carried on the back of Bryce Harper and JT Realmuto, both being healthy, and both players really kind of taking charge. And we've heard a lot lately about Bryce Harper sort of being an MVP potential candidate going forward. Still about a third of the season left for him to show that he's that. But the fact that the two of them are healthy and firing on cylinders, I think that's kind of setting a tone that can help the Phillies through these 50 games. Now, if you look at some interesting numbers, Baseball Reference gives the Phillies a playoff odds of 61.5%, which that's encouraging, right? But of course, you got to keep things going. Over the years, we've seen at the end of the season, the Phillies have had a good shot for the playoff. Even last year, right? They could have won one game in that final series against Tampa Bay and been in the playoffs, and yet they blew it. They still have to carry out these games. It will help the Phillies that they get Andrew McCutchen and Zach Eflin back. They're certainly much better with them and without them. And considering those 50 games, about 30 of them are teams that they should beat. Now, Again, should is the key word. We've seen the Phillies fall flat to the Marlins in the past when they should have beaten the Marlins. But I think Zach Wheeler as the ace kind of sets the tone here, and you feel like he can beat any team, even the teams that are the quote unquote good teams that make up those other 20 games now. So I feel like they're feeling the pressure, not just of the Mets that they now passed, but even the Atlanta Braves right behind them. I think there's this sense of urgency here, and I think that they can really carry that out these last 50 games, provided that the Braves are putting that pressure on them. And I think at the end of the season, you have a potential for that final series against the Braves, which is the next to last series of the season, to really matter. But I can see the Phillies, of course, not being the team that wins 8 in a row all the time. Of course, maybe they'll add to that tonight. But they're a team that I think that can win and can hang in there.
I would follow that up by saying I was interested to see how you answer that question, because they might be peaking right now, but the Mets are leaking oil, it feels like, and their schedule, they play 13 of 16 against the Dodgers and Giants. This could be a very pivotal 2-week stretch, 3-week stretch for these two teams.
I agree. I feel like they're in particular, there's 10 games in a row they have against the Giants and the Dodgers. I think the Mets are just going to get knocked out for the rest of the season during that series. I really do, during that series of games, because they just don't have the starting pitching right now. They're without their ace, and who probably is arguably the best pitcher in baseball with Jacob deGrom. I'm more worried at this point about the Braves catching the Phillies than I am about seeing the Mets sort of come back to life here. So rather than focusing on the Mets, I would actually recommend that fans focus on the Braves.
Yeah, I agree.
And the Braves, revamped their outfield. Of course, they had one outfielder arrested, and then their star player in center was out for the season in Ronald Acuna Jr. So they've really kind of cobbled together a new outfield, but they seem to be clicking, and they seem to be firing in all cylinders. So I think what matters more is not the Mets schedule, but the Braves schedule. And the Braves probably have I would say, pretty comparable schedule to the Phillies. I'm sure you can nitpick and maybe compare one to the other.
But a lot of the Phillies don't have a lot of division games left. That's a quirk in their schedule, where they're not playing a lot of NL East games in the remainder of the season.
Right. So they did get a lot of them out of the way, which will be very, very, very interesting as you go forward. So the opportunity to gain games on the Braves just isn't there, because they're only going to play 3 more times, and that's the second to last series. So the Phillies need to hold their own against these other teams in other divisions, and make sure that they kind of control where they are. Because if you're in first place now, you need to play better than the Braves and the other teams behind you. So that's all within their control right now. And I would say again, the Braves schedule is a little bit comparable to the Phillies.
All right, Frank Klose, Phillies mailbag is open. Phil wants to know, when are the expected returns of Connor Brogdon, Sam Coonrod, and Sir Anthony Dominguez? This is a question that kind of has to do with the battered bullpen at this point.
Right. So the Phillies have the potential, I think, to get as many as 3 arms rather soon. Because we see that, Mauricio Rivera, I mean, that the poor guy is probably out of his league, quite literally, and in the major leagues right now. And 3 home runs in a row, that's something that we just haven't seen by a reliever. So certainly the likes of Enyel De Los Santos being around, you could probably use some upgrades there. Good news, Connor Brogdon, Destiny Legardo caught him of Phillies Nation, where she comes from. She caught him throwing in the outfield the other day. So it looks like Connor Brogdon is perhaps in a better spot than a lot of them. That means he could probably start a rehab assignment.
He was on the COVID
soon.
list?
No. Brogdon has an elbow tendonitis issue.
Okay.
So yeah, so that's good. So it was not a
Falter,
COVID setback.
excuse me. Falter's on the COVID list.
Falter's on the COVID list. So Brogdon, it looks pretty good. If he's out there throwing, that probably means he can take an appearance or 2 in a rehab assignment. Sir Anthony Dominguez, by the way, a week ago when we talked, I was kind of like, if he gives you anything, he'll be a wild card. But he's made 2 official appearances for Class A Jersey Shore, both scoreless. And then on Sunday, he was starting that game. That game was suspended, but in terms of rehab appearance, he threw a really nice scoreless inning with 2 strikeouts that eventually will count when they finish that game. So I think right now, Sir Anthony Dominguez, if you kind of read into the Blue Claws Twitter handle, they wished him farewell. So it looks like he's headed to AA or AAA now. And if he does well at Double A or Triple A, you could see Sir Anthony Dominguez sooner than later, which is something which, again, I still say it's kind of a wild card compared to last week, but that would be a wonderful bonus if he's really looking this good as he progresses up the scale. And then Bailey Falter, I'm going to add him to that list because Falter had a rough bout with COVID-19. And it sounds like he's throwing again. He's throwing bullpen sessions. He's with the Phillies at the moment, and he is somebody who could have a rehab assignment soon. So interesting that all three of them could really help the Phillies in the nearer future. I would imagine a rehab assignment for any of them takes about a week. Brogdon, just went on the IL on the 3rd, so he's not eligible to come back yet. But that's some nice reinforcements that the Phillies bullpen could be getting very soon. Now, the unfortunate thing, Sam Coonrod. I did catch one of his rehab assignments, but on a second rehab assignment, July 21st, he got shut down and has not thrown since. So Coonrod might not be in the picture in the immediate future, but the Phillies potentially get 3 arms that could help them really soon.
Frank, speaking of someone that can help them, what is the latest on Freddy Galvis? Who gets sent down? How do they use Galvis?
Well, it depends how quickly he can make it back here. I've been keeping an eye out. I imagine some of those players we just mentioned in Galvis, we will hear very, very soon that they will be doing rehab assignments. Galvis has been with the club and been a positive influence on the club. By the way, The Athletic has a nice piece from Matt Gelb and Freddy Galvis today. So if you're an Athletic subscriber, I recommend you check that out. But I would imagine Freddy gets a rehab assignment soon, and then he can join the Phillies soon thereafter that. One thing I'll point out too is it's already August 10th. The Phillies roster will expand, not up to the 40 player limit like it used to be, but they'll get 2 extra players on the roster. So depending on how this plays out, it could take Freddie, I would guess, would take one of those spots. But if everybody's at full strength, I could see somebody like Luke Williams get optioned to the minor leagues. Just being told, hey, listen, we're go get some at bats, and then you'll be back with us September 1st. So be ready. And with those 2 extra spots, perhaps one of those relievers we just mentioned will be the second extra roster spot for the Phillies. So I think it'll work itself out with those couple extra spots. By the way, it feels really tight to only have 2 extra spots in September compared to yesteryear when you could put all 40 on them. Remember that a few years ago, the Phillies had almost all 40 on the active roster. But I think there is some space for that to work out. And, again, September's almost here. Hard to believe.
Sean Kane over at NBC notes that the schedule for the Phillies, Sunday was the final home game of the year against a National League East opponent. They have no home games against division rivals in the last 50 games of the season. Their final 15 division games, they are all on the road. So that includes a 3-game series with the Mets later on. They play the Braves later on. So if they need that home cooking, they're not going to get it against division foes the rest of the way. So we'll have to keep an eye on how they play on the road inside the division. Frank Klose, 97.3, ESPN.com, Phillies Insider, at Frank Klose. His Phillies mailbag appears on Tuesdays at 97.3, ESPN.com. All right, Frank, enjoy this series, man. Should be a good one.
Will do. You do the same.
All right, man. And, of course, we'll have an eye on that tonight. Phillies and the Dodgers. That's at Citizens Bank Park. We'll have all the recaps tomorrow. And for more on the Phillies, go to 97.3 ESPN.com. And don't forget, you can download the free mobile app and always take the show on the go, take the station wherever you go.